Hey everyone, Genome here, coming to you with my next episode of Was It Good, highlighting once again my hack and or slash category. So, as you all know, probably, I've been going through the entire Friday the 13th movie collection. Just finished up with 6 a couple weeks ago, and then I followed that up with the actual interview with the director of said film, and writer, of course, Mr. Tom McLaughlin. Great stuff. Link to it below if you want to go check that out, if you haven't seen it already. So we are on to part 7 now, The New Blood. This movie came out in 1988. A little bit of backstory here. This was my favorite of the Fridays when I was growing up. It's always titled like Part 4 and Part 6. Those are always my favorites growing up. But this one seemed to always be my favorite. Maybe because there was a little more action at the end of it. I don't know. But I just like Jason's look in this one a lot. So, but of course, once again, I had not seen this movie since, the 80s or maybe the 90s at the latest, so it's kind of getting back to taking a fresh look at things. So we'll see if it still holds up to my fond memories. So anyway, let's jump right in, shall we? So this movie starts out with a really good intro. Normally, I don't really care when the Fridays do a recap intro, but this one is actually kind of cool. The narration's pretty cool.
There's a legend round here. A killer buried, but not dead.
And while it does get a little bit overly long, it's not too horrible like some of the earlier ones were really bad about just stock footage from the original, films. I ad nauseum. You basically watch the entire ending of the last film. Not that bad in this one. So you get just enough to set up, what's going on with Jason, and basically that's about it. I gotta say, this initial look at Jason under the lake, just kind of sitting there in the dark, underwater, chained to that rock. That's a really cool image. I just love that image. It's so cool. That'd be a really good poster or a background of a aquarium. So take note out there, aquarium background makers. This too could be a big seller, at least to horror nerds like myself. So yeah, we basically are going back in the past. Jason's by the look of his clothes, he's only been underwater a short amount of time comparatively. Yeah, he'll look later on. But we meet a young Tina Shepard. Miss Tina is not in the best of households. Apparently, Dad is a rummy, and looks like he's also a wife beater too, so not pleasant. But we also find out very early that she has psychic powers, and she uses said powers to banish Dad beneath the waves. And apparently he stays down there, but more on that.
I hate you! I wish you were dead!
Later. So from then on, we move to modern day. We need an excuse to get back out to Crystal Lake. Oh, by the way, this happened to be Crystal Lake where they were at. So, gotta love coincidences. But modern day, she's obviously been in a psych ward for quite a while, and her doctor decides to bring her and her mother out to the place where she killed her father. Now, doctor knows about her telekinetic abilities, and yeah, Dr. Cruz, once again, is played by Terry Kaiser. And I forgot to mention, Susan Blue is Mom, Miss Shepard, and Tina Shepard herself is played by Lar Park Lincoln in what is maybe her definitive role, but she does a really good job in this movie, actually. Much has been said about her propensity for tears and all that, but I mean, that's how she was written, right? So, I mean, are you going to argue with the directors and writers, or are you going to go out there and just do your job and act? So she did, and apparently most of the tears in this movie were actually real. She could make herself cry almost at will or whatever, so which gave her raging migraines too. So way to get into the method there. But anyway, continuing on, so we find out Tina's having a lot of issues, of course. When you kill your own father, I guess you will have some of those. Not only she has to juggle that, she has to juggle dealing with her telekinetic abilities too, which is, further alienates her from her fellow people, I guess you could say. But yeah, we can tell pretty early on that, Bad News Cruz is not looking really out for her best interest. He's recording her during her sessions, and you can tell he's just trying to rile her up and, get her to use her powers.
The only reason that I'm here is to help you overcome the guilt that you have about your father's death. That's all.
That's bullshit!
So he brings her back to the house where she killed her father on Crystal Lake to really elicit some response from her. Unfortunately for everybody else, it does not have the response or the response is not elicited that is actually a positive. So after a very early on session here, he really upsets her, and she gets the mission with her daddy, and she goes out and tries to res him. Apparently she thinks she can do that now. Well, you can tell that throughout the movie she doesn't really have a grasp of what she's doing. She doesn't really know how it works. Things happen when she thinks about them, or she gets upset. So she goes out and tries to res him, and what's a pretty cool scene is she senses something down there, like her power does, and it's just Jason down there. I guess there's some little ebb of consciousness back in his brain, even though he's comatose now and basically inert. So, like a psychokinetic altered beast, she casts a res spell upon Jason and commands him to rise from his grave.
Rise from your grave.
So, Jason, being an obliging kind of chap that he is, he does. He rises from the water, and Tina conveniently passes out, and for some reason he doesn't go up and kill her. Maybe he's confused. I don't know. Maybe he just wants to go and dry off. He's pretty waterlogged after all those years underwater, so... we do see Jason exiting said resting place, and he's obviously the worst for wear now. Not only is he sporting all the decay he had when he was buried for all those years, and all the extra wounds he had from parts 2 through 4, the water has done his job on him now too, so don't forget the propeller. So the water's done its job, and basically he is a super rotting corpse now. His spinal column is plain to see as he walks out, which is a really cool looking effect, and you can see his rib cage and all that. Now, while his design is freaking amazing in this, there's 2 little issues. That's just nitpicks, but I mean the ragged pants, they do look like they were like a prop, you know what I mean? They look like someone with scissors just kind of cut them or whatever. It doesn't look all that authentic. I think he'd be a little more frayed and all that and washed out, but whatever, it's a minor gripe. The little more, I don't know, salient one is nothing I don't think they can really do about it. See, they had, Jason's played by Kane Hodder in this movie, and much like C.J. Graham before him, Kane is a fairly large gentleman, so, and he's really wide. If you look at stills of him, he's a real wide guy. So Jason is supposed to be basically half skeletal with remnant flesh all over him, but he's really big. You think when he's just mostly skeletal, he's got bones poking out, you think he'd be real thin, especially through the midsection, when everything decays and you get really, really thin through the stomach cavity and all that, and he just looks enormous in this movie. So it doesn't quite line up with the underwater decay, but I mean, come on, I'm just picking nits here for God's sakes. He makes an excellent looking monster in this. So the makeup is top notch, and this is probably the best that undead Jason has ever looked, or probably ever will look, because I doubt we'll ever get another rendition of him again. But anyway, I digress. So we are introduced to, while Jason's out wandering around drying off, we're introduced to some of the teenage Jason fodders, I like to call them, throughout the house.
Well, there's a guy I'd like to give a surprise party for. Hi, Melissa.
I'm Tina from next door.
I know.
You don't really get to know any of them really all that well. There's some exceptions to this, but for the most part, they're just a bunch of happy, horny teens, out there for sex, drugs, and I guess synth pop. I don't really hear any rock and roll going on, but hey, whatever, Nice mix of kids. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of them. A couple of the standouts are Elizabeth Kaitan as Robin. Why am I drawing a blank here? Diana Barrows as Maddie. She's the... those two had that little... need a little touch-up work scene, which they also have in the extended cut. I don't have it right here in front of me in case. Oh yeah, I do. Hold on. And this nice little kit right here, they have a little extra scene with them like 20 or 25 years later, and they recreate that, but on Hollywood Boulevard or something like that. It's Redondo. I don't know where it is, but they're out shopping or whatever and getting a makeover, so it's kind of a funny little thing. But and then you'll have 2 other kind of characters that get a lot more like airtime out of this, and a little bit more on them later. But So, you know, it's a Friday the 13th movie, so it's time to start ramp up the body count. So the first couple kills are not too noteworthy with the stakes, whatever. But the next ones are really good. Probably the best actually in the movie are the cousin and his girlfriend. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it's not the cousin and girlfriend. It's just some random campers. I'm sorry. Yeah, there was some body padding in there. Excuse me, there. But what's really interesting about this scene, too, well, not interesting, but just for me, is this once again, like part 6, this shows them bringing or using the most odd sounds to highlight, like, when Jason comes into frame. It's just such a weird noise. I can't figure out what it is. Underneath the water, there's like some, it sounds like cymbals being hit in reverse, or gongs being hit in reverse or something. But it has kind of an underwater feel to it. But this one, I don't know where this noise comes from. But there's a similar one in part 6. But this one is just out there. And so Jason gets his first kills in. I don't know why he uses his hand in the first one, since I thought the guy left the machete behind, but apparently he was carrying it with him. I didn't see that part. I don't know. Don't look into it too much, but it's pretty interesting what they do with basically very little gore that was allowed. So let's get into gore real fast. The MPA has done the entire Friday series dirty, to say the least, but this one is just almost unforgivable. This movie is almost PG-13 able. If it wasn't so much like, you know, sex and a little bit of nudity in there, this could almost be, you know, PG-13 if you get down to it, and some language. But I mean, wow, it's so tame compared to the other ones. Even compared to the other ones who got heavily, you know, redacted from the MPEA. This one is tops. That's not a good thing, unfortunately. But it's not the movie's fault. So from there, we go into one of the most famous kills in the entire series, the infamous sleeping bag scene. I'm sure everyone who's watching us knows about the story. There's like a 90-pound dummy in there, plus blood, and he had swung it many, many, many times, and I think the last take is the one they used when he was just so pissed off. He freaking flings that thing against the tree, and they only show one hit. It was originally multiple. And then supposedly right after the cameras stopped, or he winds up kicking the bag when it's down. He was so mad, but they edited it out because the MPA wasn't going to have that. I guess you can't show anger to the person you just bashed against a tree that you don't even know, but... So, once again, one of the more famous kills, and I think it's Kane Hodder's favorite kill that he's ever done in the entire series. So we go back to the house, and, you know, Tina is kind of catching on that Cruz is not the nice doctor that he says he is. He doesn't really want to help her, and she's kind of getting a little loopy because no one's going to believe her. You know, she saw Jason come out of the water, and no one believes her, and everyone keeps saying it's delusions, and she gets pretty pissed off, and it kind of gives a glimmer of what she's capable of. It's pretty cool how this movie ramps up what she's able to do until she can finally take on Jason at the end, with some bigger fireworks, you know. So that's pretty cool. It's like she's just getting a grasp on her powers. They make it real gradual. So that's kind of cool. I mean, she has to start off by lifting barges and things like that, and uprooting trees. So, you know, that's kudos to them. So you go from like little scenes like that to probably the funniest scene in the movie, just a cutie little, you know, throwaway scene between two, you know, basically invisible characters. They have very little dialogue, but yeah, it's kind of a funny little tidbit here.
When did you first fall in love with me?
First time I saw the enormous size of your beautiful wallet.
You know, unfortunately, before he's able to consummate the deal in the water, our young Lothario here is just showing the business end of an axe. And what's another heavily cut scene, a lot of cutaways here in this movie. But apparently there's some really cool effects this one, but it comes off looking okay, so that's why I included it here. I won't show every kill of every movie of these, of course. I hate you. I want people who are watching these who maybe have never seen these before to go out and check it out for themselves. But really, I could basically show every kill on this with no fear of like making anyone queasy, because there's not much to see in this one, unfortunately. We got another semi-famous scene where Maddie goes running into like a utility shed out there where apparently Jason's been getting his weapons. So not too wise a place to hide, but she doesn't know that. So there's a kind of a lot of cat and mouse here for a few minutes. And actually probably the creepiest scene in the entire movie is like right in this area, right in here. They have some really good lightning effects, thunder effects in the background. And, you know, Jason's looking around for her, and then he kind of zeroes in where she's at. Freaking great scene. I like that setup at all. So we go from there to the random couple who's barely been seen before in the van, you know, going to town, and of course, interrupted Jason will have none of that on his watch. So another heavily edited death. No, he got his skull crushed, and the director says it's to the size of a walnut by the time Kane got done with it, and it was full of blood and all kinds of stuff. But once again, of course, I didn't make it in there, so you just see a little blood coming out of his forehead, and that's it. But I kind of like the death that she gets. It's got a clever edit, and of course the sound is hilarious when it goes in. I bet they were cracking up when they did this.
Stop screwing around!
So now in like a post-coital snack retrieval, we have a really cool scene. This one's like reminiscent of a Halloween movie, where Jason's kind of standing off, you know, right where people probably could see him if the lights were on, but the lights are not on because Jason's cut them. So pretty cool scene on a pretty boring death, but even uses the butcher knife a la Michael Myers here. So this one seems like to be a very Halloween-inspired one.
What?
So next we see Dr. Cruz kind of moving through the forest and discovering bodies along the way. Jason just loves to decorate his area, but we get to kind of see what Dr. Cruz is made of. He's pretty slimy here, and he offers up a sacrificial lamb. But, you know, unfortunately for him, unfortunately for us, Jason still catches them anyway and dishes out his just desserts with probably the most unusual implement he's ever used. It's like a cross between a weed eater and a circular saw. Very, must be like a brush eater or something. I worked at lawn care for years. I never saw one of these things, but hey, what are you going to do? It's pretty cool, but unfortunately it was once again heavily cut. So you basically see a thrust in a death. But from there, he just goes back and picks up anyone who's left over who's not a named character. The sci-fi nerd, he had some pretty funny stuff. John Beekler, he's the director of this movie, and he said this is kind of him, this character, the nerdy sci-fi guy that no one would talk to when he was growing up. So he kind of patterned him after himself. But so he meets his demise and wants another cutaway death.
Change your mind or what? Melissa?
But you kind of feel bad for this guy because he got rejected hard and got used as a pawn in the next character I'll mention's wicked game of chess. So now Tina has come face to face with her mother's corpse, and she goes after Jason hard, which is kind of a nice, refreshing thing after, you know, so many gibbering, screaming final girls. So that's a cool part. I like that. And so you start getting an inkling now what she can do as she starts throwing basically everything at Jason at this point. And of course he keeps on ticking, you know, he's like the Energizer Buzz, he gets up and keeps on ticking, but it's pretty cool, man. She's kind of handed it to him quite a bit, and basically every scene that she fights him, she basically does. Because he only gets his hand on her like once, and then he just rips her coat or whatever. But so yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a cool aspect to have him against somebody that you know is basically a superior opponent to him. The only thing he has going for him is, you know, drive and invulnerability. I guess those are pretty good things though when it comes to this kind of fight. Now there is a scene that's kind of strange in here where Jason, like, he's been lumbering and slowly walking through the entire movie, and all of a sudden he just jumps through this window. This is like more like something he'd do in 3 or 4, you know? I don't understand why they include that. He could just burst through the door like he does all the other times, right? But they want to do something different. I mean, it looks cool, but it just doesn't seem fitting to his new, you know, zombie-fied approach. So I didn't mention the other 2 basically named characters, and that's Nick, played by Ken Spiritus, and probably one of my favorite tertiary characters in the entire series. I know people can't stand when I say that probably, but it's actually Melissa, played by Susan Jennifer Sullivan. She plays the mean girl bitch, and she plays it to the T. She nails it. She's so good in this. You loathe her so much that you're rooting for Jason to get her, and probably people in the theater were probably cheering when it happened, but she pulled the role off so well. She played it so snarky and so, I don't know, she just immersed herself, you know, and it comes out so good. So kudos to her. And also kudos to the stunt woman who, after Melissa takes this axe to the face, Jason flings her across the room, and I've noticed this before, and even Kay mentioned this in the director's commentary, that she can't stop her fall when he throws her against the wall behind the TV, so she just goes face first and then does it, man. So kudos to whoever that stunt woman was that did that, but yeah, that was a hell of a toss. So now we see the beginning of the final fight between Tina and Jason, and it kind of starts off with an unmasking. So much has been said about the makeup effects on Jason in this movie, and in my opinion, not enough can be said. I mean, this is obviously a lower budget movie, but it looks a lot higher budget than it actually is, if that makes any sense. It just doesn't look like a cheap movie. But they didn't have a huge budget to work with, but Jason looks so good when he's unmasked. You know, everything, all the injuries are there. He's got the big gash still in his forehead. His eye is gone from when Tommy destroyed that in part 4, really. His propeller damage is still there, so you can, throughout the movie, you can see off the chipped off mask, you can see his teeth working back there. He just looks so good, man. The chain's still around his neck, which is a nice touch. It's like he doesn't give a damn enough to even take it off. That's just how driven and single-minded he is. But, so, yeah, he just looks great. But anyway, there's a lot of back and forth between the two. When they get down to the basement, Tina really throws a kitchen sink at him. And kind of lights up his life, if you catch my drift. This leads into what at the time was the longest cinematic sustained burn on TV. King Hodder sat in there for, I think, 40 seconds or so. On fire completely. I don't think he had a respirator or anything on, so man, that guy throws himself into a role, man. That's great stuff. But yeah, Jason burns up. They the two lovebirds, Nick and Tina, who don't have a lot of chemistry on set, to be honest with you, but he's been working on her the whole time and she's liking him. It's kind of tender and endearing, I guess, in a way. You know, they exit Sands burning or exit burning house quickly, and we were treated to a really excellent explosion. I think I actually blew up the house for this shot. And you really feel it, man. It's a good explosion. And somehow either Jason got out before this or he was thrown out of there from the explosion. I'm not sure how that works from the basement, but whatever. Basically, he's still alive, and now he's got Tina trapped and cornered. You know, Nick, because he's out of commission. She's got a hurt knee apparently from the throw, and so for the complete Deus Ex Machina, she reses her father. And he takes care of Jason and drags him down beneath the waves. Much has been said about this. I know I keep saying that, but a lot's been said about this. The director was not happy with the makeup on the guy. There's a lot of studio interference at this point. And so basically, he wanted to make the guy decayed, looking like Jason almost, really, because he'd been in the water supposedly so long. Why they never recovered his body is beyond me. There's some people also say this was actually just a psychic manifestation of her father that she somehow created. Who knows? But anyway, what had happened is the director going basically put some mud and dirt on his face. Because that's just what the studio, you know, the suits wanted, and that's what he had to do. So he didn't like it. Most people watching it didn't like it. I thought it was kind of a cool ending, and it makes sense that maybe someone else supernatural could take Jason down finally, but it just left a little bit to be desired. But what's cool about this ending, too, is it's final. There's no other indications that you think Jason's going to be coming back. They don't show him underneath the water anymore. They don't show like a still shot of the lake with eerie music or anything like that. It just, he appears to be gone, so movie over. All right, so that was Friday the 13th Part 7. Try to make this a little more brief than my other ones have been. They got way too long-winded. So, what do I think about this movie? Let's talk about some good points and bad points. And boy, my battery's screaming red at me. Hopefully I can get this done before it dies. Let's talk about some bad points first. You don't get nearly as much time with the tertiary characters as you do like in Part 6. Part 6 really got me spoiled. It was so good at introducing basically everyone and giving everyone at least a small character trait. And you don't get a lot of that in this movie with at least the smaller, you know, the lower down characters. I mean, you do have the pothead, you do have the sci-fi guy, you got the Valley Girl bitch, and a couple other ones that are like, they're just not partying teens, basically. So they weren't given a lot to work with, so it's not really anyone's fault. No one's particularly bad in this that I can recall. So, yeah, you didn't really care so much when the tertiary people died. So, some of the music is a little bit recycled, but I think it was all very tastefully done, so I got no problems with it there. Tina is always crying or on the verge of crying. I know that she's supposed to be coming off as kind of an unstable character, but especially earlier on, it's like, well, maybe she stopped crying so much. You know, she should be angsty teen at this point. Maybe she cries less and gets angry more and throws things around with her mind. But, yeah, and that's basically it. And then the MPA, they're just awful. They've done their damnedest to ruin these movies, but they still couldn't do it. Not when you have such a good IP like this. So many cutaway kills, almost no gore. I mean, this is like made for TV movie kind of gore. I mean, maybe argument can be made for Jason's makeup being a little bit hideous, but he's probably more upsetting looking in like 3 or 4 if you get down to it, looking more human like he was. But that's basically it. Now, I mean, some goods. Once again, I think this movie is shot very well. It's lit very well. It looks good. The makeup effects are great. I'm sure the gore effects were good too, if you could only see them, but they were all cut. So, the sets look nice. The actors and actresses look nice. I mean, what's to say? It just looks good. I mean, outside of some jarring edits and all that, I think it looks great, especially for the time it was made and for the budget it was made with. I think it looks really good. You know, John Buechler should be proud. Has a decent flow. It's a little bit draggy in a couple of parts, especially the beginning with the little girl and all that. I mean, I know they're trying to, you know, set the expectations for what she can do, but that part kind of drags on a little bit. And there's a lot of, you know, exposition that need to be there about Tina, but it's not a worse movie because of it. Just, you know, some parts can drag just a little bit, but you know, everything else is great. Kane makes a great Jason. There's a real sense of menace in his movements, and but there's also an economy of movement too. He doesn't seem to take any unnecessary steps. There's a really cool scene I like when he's playing cat and mouse with him, where he just reaches over and slams the door, then it goes right back to his stalk mode. It's like he moves really fast like a jungle cat, and then he's right back to, you know, shambling along. Once again, maybe not as in keeping with his current state of decomposition, but whatever. Please don't overanalyze this stuff like I do. You keep yourself up at night. But I think it was a very entertaining movie. So was this movie good? Out of 5 stars, I'm gonna give this movie I would say like a 3.5, but I don't have a 0.5 scale, so let's just go ahead and go with 4. Part 6 was technically a better movie as overall. It checks so many boxes pretty well, but this one's really entertaining. If I was to have to show somebody who had never seen the series before, Friday the 13th movie, I'd probably show them 6 or 7, because it has a little more appeal to modern stuff. It looks a lot better visually than the other ones did. Film stock was better. Some things don't look quite as dated. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of bigger hair like this one, but not nearly as bad as like some of the older ones, you know. Acting is all, you know, pretty good for what, you know, they're giving. We got friggin' Weekend at Bernie's corpse, for goodness sake, making an appearance. So, you know, Laura does a really good job as a final girl. I don't know what I can say. I mean, it just has a good intro, has a good ending. It has a really cool premise, something we've never seen before. Someone who could put Jason on his back heels for a change, and who's not a whimpering, screaming, you know, sack of flesh at the end. So it's nice. It's actually kind of refreshing, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I would have to give this 4 stars. It's more like a 3, 3.5.
What's the matter? What's the matter? It's me. What is it? What is it?
But I'm going to bump it up just because it looks so good to modern audiences. Well, and the reason I say that is because I had my folks. My mom was here, my little brother, and my sister. I say little, they're like 20 and 30 respectively, my sister and brother. I had them watch it with me, and we all watched it in the family room, and they all said, to a T, they all said, well, that's a little better than I thought it was going to be, because I kind of warned them. It's like, this might be a little hokey for you guys. But so yeah, just a highly recommended edition. It doesn't get nearly as much flack as a couple of the you know, the whipping mules or whatever you get for some of the ones like number 5 and number 9 really get the ire of a lot of the community. So anyway, if for some reason you haven't seen this movie, check it out. If you haven't seen this movie in a long time, check it out anyway. It's highly recommended in the series. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll have my review coming up for part 8 here before you know it. And don't forget, I have my interview coming up with Jason portrayer CJ Graham from part 6, coming out probably in about a month or so. So stay tuned for that. And I'm in the works of grabbing some more interviews from some more casting characters and developers of said movies. So once again, thanks for watching. And until next time, this is Gino, loving this slog through Friday the 13th. Out.